How are you? How are you everybody today? This lecture is the second lecture in our course, Sampling Survey. This is the third lecture in this semester, the first semester of 2020. This lecture related to the chapter number 2, which named under elements of the sampling problem. Now, this is an introduction about the chapter number 2. The objective of sample surveys. What is the main objective? Everybody must know very closely what is the main objective. After we describe the negative and the positive aspects or advantage and disadvantages of sample survey, we must know what is the objective, what is the goals of sample survey. The objective of sample surveys is to make inferences, to know the secret about a population from information contained in a sample selected from that population. The inference often takes the form of estimating a population mean, such as mean income per household, or proportion, such as proportion of voters favoring a certain issue. And these are the two types of problems that are discussed most in this book. We begin by considering the particular problem of sampling from a finite collection of measurements. Finite collection of measurement, population. And then observe what happens as the population size gets larger. In most cases, the inference is in the form of an estimate of population parameter. Population parameter like mean, median, range, mode, variance, standard deviation, coefficient of variation, and so on, such as a mean, total, or proportion, with a bound on an error of estimation, so that there must be an error of estimation for those more interested in methodology than theory. Intuitive arguments are given whenever possible to justify the use of estimators. Each observation or item taken from the population contains a certain amount of information about the population parameter or parameters of interest. Because information costs money, the experimenter must determine how much information he or she should buy. Too little information prevents the experimenter from making good estimates, whereas too much of it results in a waste of money. The quantity of information obtained in the sample depends on the number of items sampled and on the amount of variation in the data. This latter factor can be controlled somewhat by the method of selecting the method called the design of the sample survey. How we can design the sample survey? How we can take the information. A good design of sample surveys, a good result, and a good information about the population, and vice versa. The design of the survey and the sample size determine the quantity of information in the sample pertinent to a population parameter, provided that accurate measurements are obtained on each sample element. Several sample survey designs are introduced in section 2.3 in your reference in your book. Now, Now, some technical terms. Technical terminology is kept to a minimum in this book. However, certain common terms must be defined. Let us introduce some of these terms by way of example or by way of definition. Definition 2.1 in your book. What is the meaning of an element? An element is an object on which a measurement is taken. In our example, if an element registered voter in the community, the measurement taken on an element is the voter preference on the bond issue. So that the main element is an object on which a measurement is taken. Definition 2.2. What is the meaning of a population? Population means that a collection of elements about which we wish to make an inference. This is the definition of a population. There are more definitions of population. You can take any definition you can think is a good for you. The population in our example is a collection of voters in the community. The characteristic numerical measurement of interest for each member of this population is his or her preference on the bondage. An important task for the investigator is to carefully and completely define the population. This is a very important part. You must define the population before collecting a sample. You must define the population before collecting a sample. The definition must include a description of the elements to be included and a specification of the measurements to be taken, because these two components are interrelated. For example, if the population in the bond issue study consists of registered voters, then we may want to collect information on whether or not each sampled person plans to vote in the upcoming election. Sampling the desired target population is not always possible, so that you must determine your population before you design the sample survey. Definition 2.3. Sampling units are non-overlapping collections of elements from the population that cover the entire population. You must know what is the meaning of probability sampling and non-probability sampling. You must go back to your reference and know what is the meaning. What is the difference between probability and non-probability sampling? Probability sampling must be defined and non-probability sampling must be defined. What is the definition of probability sampling and non-probability sampling? You can go back to your reference and you can take a lot of information about probability, main information about probability and non-probability sampling. Now, everybody must know what is the sources in errors for survey. Survey result must contain many errors. What is the source of these errors? What is the cause of these errors? You can also go back to your reference and read more and more information about the sources of errors in survey. There are errors of non-observation and errors of observation. You must know very closely what is the meaning of error of observations and error of non-observation. Error of observation and the error of non-observation, you can find it in your reference by details, and you must know and read very closely these details about errors of non-observation and error of observation, which related to the sources of errors in surveys. Thank you for everybody. See you in the next lecture in the faculty and on the faculty website. Thank you for everybody.